lots of issues like being stamped upon. Which is the same thing as a newsman. I mean, they're not that different.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
Very good morning. You're watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up on the show, we will bring you the latest on the US sanctioning Russia's 2 largest oil refineries and what these sanctions would mean for larger trade and business as well as economies. Now, also on the show, India is entering that final stage, it seems, of going ahead and getting those tariff cuts from the US. But will they? Because Prime Minister Modi has decided, reportedly, to skip the ASEAN summit where the deal was to be announced. Also on the show, we'll bring you the latest on the India-EU FTA as the European Trade Commissioner as well as India's Commerce Minister have exchanged notes on how to go ahead and seal the deal in Brussels next week. And finally on the show, news that could impact the markets. Infosys original founders are deciding to stay away from the share buyback. We'll tell you what that means for investors. This is Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, the headlines that we're tracking for you.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा के संग त्योहार की उमंग.
The US Trump administration has imposed sanctions on 2 of Russia's largest oil refineries. We'll tell you what that means for the purchase of Russian oil and the pressure on world economies. The direct impact of these sanctions, oil prices have jumped as much as 3% immediately after announcement of sanctions. And yet again, US President Donald Trump has claimed that he has spoken to Prime Minister Modi and he has been assured that India will halt its Russian oil purchases. No confirmation still from the Indian side. Reports suggest India and US trade talks are now running in the direction of a slash from 50% to as little as 15% tariffs on Indian exports. Meanwhile, the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement talks are scheduled. The final round is scheduled for next week as PIYUSH GOYAL would travel to Brussels. Meanwhile, PIYUSH GOYAL and SEFCOVIC, the European Commissioner for Trade, have exchanged notes suggesting that the FTA is moving in the right direction. Commerce Industry Minister PIYUSH GOYAL will also visit Germany on an official visit beginning today. Trade and investment talks are on his agenda. In a surprise move, Infosys founders as well as the family members, including N.R. Narayana Murthy, Sudha Murthy, daughter Akshara Murthy, as well as son Rohan Murthy, as well as Nanda Nilekhani and wife Rohini Nilekhani, are staying out of the buyback option on Infosys shares. We'll discuss on the show what this means for Infosys investors. Meanwhile, the good momentum on the stock market continues as markets inched up almost 0.5%, in fact a little over 0.5% in trade yesterday. Sensex now moving in the 85,000 direction, while Nifty 50 now inching closer to the 26,000 levels. And after that mammoth rally, gold prices have finally dipped after the festive surge. The precious yellow metal is now under 1,25,000 rupees for 10 grams.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा के संग त्योहार की उमंग.
Let's start with the top story that we're bringing for you. US President Donald Trump has slapped sanctions on Russia's two largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, on Wednesday, complaining that the talks with Vladimir Putin to end the Ukraine war did not go anywhere. The new sanctions were unveiled one day after plans for a summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin fell apart. The US Treasury Department said Russia's two largest oil companies were targeted in a bid to damage Moscow's ability to fund its Ukraine war machine. For months, Trump has resisted pressure from US lawmakers to impose energy sanctions, hoping that Putin would agree to end the fighting. But with no end in sight, he said he felt it was time. Separately, European Union countries also approved a 19th package of sanctions against Russia for its war against Ukraine, which includes a ban of Russian liquefied natural gas imports, the Danish rotating presidency of the EU said on Wednesday.
The meeting with President Putin, it didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it. But we'll do it in the future. They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push, hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes two to tango, as they say, and we're going to find out. They hate each other. These two people hate each other. You know that better than anybody. And it makes it more difficult than it should be.
And sanctions on Russian oil are sure to have impact on global economies, including potentially those of India as well as China. But there is also an immediate fallout and an immediate impact, and that was visible on global energy markets. Oil prices have jumped nearly 3% in Asian trade on Thursday as traders reacted to President Donald Trump's move against Russian oil giants Rosneft and Lukoil. The West Texas Intermediate, or WTI, rose to over $60 a barrel, while Brent crude climbed past $64 a barrel. The spike follows Trump's comments that his talks with Russian leader Vladimir Putin to end the Ukraine war did not go anywhere. And even as India and the US seemingly move closer to finalizing a trade deal that could bring major tariff cuts, US President Donald Trump has once again claimed that he has had a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He says India had assured him it would almost completely stop buying oil from Russia by end of this year. Trump said he spoke to Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently and praised him for being absolutely great and fully aligned with Washington's broader strategic goals. Remember, soon after Donald Trump had made that first claim, a statement from the Ministry of External Affairs as well as in a press conference, it was made amply clear that MEA was not aware of any phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. This time around, the tone from Donald Trump was notably sharper when it came to China. He accused past US administrations of driving China and Russia closer together through weak energy policies and said the two countries should never have been friendly. The US president added that he will raise the issue of China's energy ties with Russia when he meets Xi Jinping in South Korea next week for the ASEAN summit. Listen in.
Against Ukraine.
Well, I think I'll be talking to him about it. I think it's a little bit of a different talk. India, as you know, has told me they are stop. You know, it's a process. You can't just stop it. But by the end of the year, they'll be down to almost nothing. That's a big thing. That was almost 40% of the oil. India, they've been great. Spoke to Prime Minister Modi yesterday. They've been absolutely great. China's a little bit different. You know, they're a little bit different relationship they have with Russia. It was never good, but because of Biden and Obama, they got forced together. They should never have been forced together, but they're a little bit forced. But they're by nature, they're not. They can't be friendly. They can't be friendly. By nature, they can, I hope they are friendly, frankly, but they can't be. You should not have forced Russia and China together. And Biden did that, and Obama did that. They forced them together because of energy, because of oil, and so they are closer than they would normally be. I think I'll probably be talking about it. What I'll really be talking to him about is how do we end the war with Russia and Ukraine, whether it's through oil or energy or anything else. And I think he's going to be very receptive. He would now like to. I'm not sure that he.
Well, Barnik Chitran Mehta, PE investor, managing partner, Chrysalis Equity Ventures, joins me this morning for his views on the latest that we are picking up on sanctions against Russian oil. Barnik, good morning. I don't know whether you're joining us from Washington or not, but the real question I want to ask you is, have sanctions, theoretically, in the past, have sanctions worked? And if so, what could be the ramifications on economies of India and China with A, sanctions on Russian oil, and B, Donald Trump's continuous claims that India has assured the US that it will stop buying Russian oil?
I think the sanctions are just an indication of the growing frustration which the Americans and the Europeans are having with Russians refusing to come to the negotiating table and negotiate in good faith. I don't think it's going to create a big dent onto Russia's economy. I think Russia has gone through sanctions before. I think the only implication is that the crude prices will spike a bit temporarily, which it already has. But that being said, if you look at India, I think one of the most important things to note about India, and this has also been extensively covered recently, is that the gap of the Russian crude versus crude bought from the Middle East and the US has now narrowed from $14, $15 a barrel to down under $2.50 a barrel.
That's right.
So the price arbitrage of buying a lot of oil, which is 34% of our energy reserves from Russia, is not that high. I think this year the estimate suggests that India has saved less than $4 billion on its imports from Russia.
Right.
So while the global administration gets much more tougher with Russia, I think the economic case for India to continue to buy a lot of Russian oil is also dwindling. So it won't be hard to believe that if the Indians do want to reduce their dependence on Russian oil, if you remember before the war, India used to only import less than 4% of its oil needs from Russia. That is quite feasible in this environment and will be supportive. And any benefits India gets in terms of a bilateral trade agreement with the US will far outweigh any downside from not buying a lot of Russian oil in the future.
All right. You did mention food prices are going to see a spike. Just explain that. Are we going to import inflation because these sanctions are going to then lead to eventually oil prices really going up, and India being a net importer is going to add to inflation woes for India?
So it will add a little bit of it, but I think to be fair, let's see how the prices behave, right? I think to be fair, even today, the crude prices are well under $70. I think concerns start coming when crude prices approach $75 and beyond.
Yeah.
So right now, the pricing spike is not that high. This is just a speculators betting on the increase in crude price. I think if you look at even the American economy, a global expansion in crude prices will also hurt developed market economies. We are going to head into the European winter with the requirement of energy from Europe in terms of both oil and natural gas will suddenly become exponentially higher in the next couple of months. Also, there are a lot of reasons why the increase in energy prices will not be sustainable, nor will it be secular. So again, I would do a wait and watch and not comment on inflation impacts yet till at least the crude price stays under $70 a barrel.
All right, and it's well below $70 a barrel right now, so no immediate need for concern. Barnik, do stay with me. I want to get your input on another story that we did break on the show yesterday, but to follow up that, as per news reports, New Delhi and Washington finally seem to be closing in on the long-pending trade deal that could result in tariffs being lowered from the current 50% levels to about 15 to 16%. Now, this deal, as per the report, was set to be announced at the ASEAN summit later this month between US President Donald Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But new reports are now suggesting that Prime Minister Modi may be skipping the ASEAN summit altogether. So this puts another question mark on at least the announcement of the trade deal, if not on the eventuality of the trade deal eventually getting synced. Now, with the way geopolitical equations have played out over the last few months, US now appears to be ready for a deal with India, especially driven by China's hardening stance. China's tighter control over rare earth exports and deepening US-China trade war are forcing Washington seemingly to build alternative supply chains, and that could be where India comes in. Of course, there is also this Russian oil angle, which we've already discussed on the show, but India is also considering increasing the quota for importing non-genetically modified maize from the US in response to rising domestic demand from poultry feed, dairy inputs, as well as ethanol industries. But the question is, with Bihar elections just around the corner, less than a few days from now, can the Indian side afford to make any concessions to go ahead and bring that trade deal back home? Barnik, Can India make those concessions on agri, on dairy? Oil, of course, is a different story altogether. But with Bihar elections around the corner, can the dairy sector and the agri sector, any of those red lines, be compromised on?
No, so I think for the first time in the last couple of quarters, I think the negotiating leverage is completely with the Indian side. I think the desperation and the intent to close the trade deal rests far more with the Americans than the Indians, right? Even if you look at the reporting over the last 24 to 48 hours, the concessions which the Americans seem to be reasonably satisfied with are fairly minor, right? It's just moving around a few import quotas for non-GM maize, maybe for non-GM soybean, and maybe for some feedstock into ethanol. These are fairly minor concessions in the broader scheme of things. It's just a readjustment of the quota.
Okay.
We've not seen any news where the fundamental rate of tariff which applies to these imports is going to change.
All right.
It's just that the quotas will shift more in the favor of the US than other countries. That being said, I think it's a telling sign that the Prime Minister has decided to skip ASEAN. That means that the Indian government is not ready to make a big announcement. Maybe there is political calculus around the Bihar election.
Right.
There are also rumors that dairy remains unresolved as of now. There is a growing demand from the Americans that the Indian dairy sector, particularly the processed dairy sector, be opened up and tariffs be dropped for things like processed cheese coming from the US.
Yeah.
I don't think the Indian side has agreed to that. So while the current shape and form of the rumor suggests that India will come back from the trade deal with a big smile, I don't think the timing is yet right to announce something with some of these things pending. So let's say fingers crossed before end of this calendar year, or worst case end of this fiscal year, this BTA may get announced.
Yeah.
And even though if it gets announced, it will take another year or two for it to get finalized. So again, I'm not very hopeful of something announced next week.
Okay.
But let's see how it pans out.
All right, not hopeful for an announcement next week, but there could be another announcement next week. We'll come to that later. But Barnik, thank you so much for joining us and your input here to News9. And what could be happening next week is the India-EU FTA. The final contours of that could finally be agreed upon. Union Commerce and Industry Minister PIYUSH GOYAL has met with top European Union officials on Wednesday to discuss pending issues related to the long-awaited India-EU free trade agreement. This ahead of his visit to Brussels next week. In a post on X, GOYAL said he has had a productive engagement focused on the positive resolution of the outstanding issues with MAROS SEFCOVIC, the EU Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security. And on the sidelines of the conference, GOYAL also met Teresa Ribera, Executive Vice President for Clean, Just and Competitive Transition at the European Commission. The discussions focused on advancing cooperation in areas related to sustainable growth and green transitions. MAROS SEFCOVIC also expressed optimism after the meeting, noting that both sides were determined to keep making progress and elevate the EU-India trade and investment relationship to a new level. According to Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal, trade negotiations between India and the EU are now in their final stages and could be concluded by December of this year. Well, before we move any further on to understanding the India-EU FTA, remember, MAROS SEFCOVIC had spoken exclusively at the News9 Global Summit in Stuttgart earlier this month. Now, here we have a short excerpt of his address at the News9 Global Summit.
I have been in intensive discussions with my Indian counterpart, Minister PIYUSH GOYAL, on a groundbreaking free trade agreement. We are now maximizing our efforts to finalize negotiations by the end of the year. The goal put forward by the European Commission President von der Leyen and Prime Minister Modi. We are focusing on working together in the areas where cooperation makes sense, with the goal of putting in place a package that is economically meaningful, mutually beneficial, and brings real added value to businesses and consumers on both sides.
And News9's editor Rakesh Khar joins me this morning. Good morning, Mr. Khar. Pleasure having you here. After a long time on the channel, on the morning show. Now, two stories here. One, of course, is the India-EU FTA, for which PIYUSH GOYAL is expected to travel to Brussels next week. But there's another story which I think is closer to News9, and that's the fact that PIYUSH GOYAL will be traveling to Berlin today to reinforce India's economic trade partnership with Germany, which is Europe's largest economy and one of the world's most influential industrial hubs. So what are you picking up, Mr. Khar, on this overall export potential, trade negotiations, as well as strengthening of bilateral ties with India, Germany, and then, of course, Germany being part of EU, so the India-EU FTA also progressing?
Morning, Karthik. Good to be here back on the morning show. Heartening to see that you're finally making a lot of progress on the Indo-German, which in a way serves as the gateway to the India-EU FTA. So these are very positive movements. And remember that there was an 8-year hiatus on the EU FTA, and there was no conversation happening between the two blocks. And finally, in 2022 October, things started shaping up again, and now I think series of meetings, including the latest one, point to one healthy result, and we're all looking forward to this particular piece happening, by the end of the year. Coming specifically to Germany, very close to us at TV9 network, particularly News9, we just concluded our second edition of the German, summit. What is interesting is that there's such warmth between the two countries celebrating 25 years of the strategic partnership, that every day, every minute looks like that we are getting closer and closer on hardcore politico-economic and pure play economic terms that really is inspiring. I think there is, of course, on the ground a deficit in terms of between the two countries in trade, which needs to be bridged. And Germany is critical to us from both import and also as a market for exports. Right. So I think we really are looking forward to these two happening in quick succession. And the good news by the end of the year possibly would be that while we deepen relationships with Germany, we also bring up the FTA deal with the EU. And I think the right news is all of them are happening. There is this term outstanding issues, but in each such prolonged and pronounced FTA or trade deal, there would be some minor issues, but I think these could be easily ironed out as we go along.
Right, and these minor issues could become irritants as well for the deal to go through. I want to pick up your brains on just two of those minor irritants. One is the function of the carbon tax, the CBAM, and the second, of course, is pressure, not just from US, but even from Europe for India to stop buying Russian oil. This in the wake of US sanctions on Russian oil coming in this morning. Overall, how do you expect India to deal with these two, minor or major stumbling blocks for the FTA to go through?
Well, I think, the carbon thing, we have been progressing. There are some issues, but on the oil piece, we are quite, committed to making a bold statement that we are not going to budge under pressure either from the US or the EU. In fact, the US has been accusing EU also of buying oil, so that hypocrisy needs to be called out. Karthik, my view is that globally now everybody has come to, understand that India has a certain point of view on the oil, which suits its 1.4 billion people. And imagine what Trump said yesterday. Of course, he's not to be believed for what he says in the morning and changes in the evening or by the afternoon. He's now saying that India needs to, I understand, there will be reduced oil versus no oil import from Russia. So I think EU should see sense in what the larger message from India is on this count. And this possibly a reduced, so to say, imports from Russia should soothe everyone else. And I think Government of India is not committed to a certain number. And we have also increased imports from US in terms of the oil, bucket. So that makes it sort of feasible for being open to negotiations, yet not divorcing from the core interests of, serving 1.4 billion people.
All right, Rakesh Khar, always a pleasure having you here with us, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on this important story.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And now just to sort of conclude the entire block of PIYUSH GOYAL's visit to Europe, let's also just quickly run through the agenda. So next week he is going to be in Brussels to finally go ahead and close those contours of the trade deal with the European Union. Meanwhile, in Germany, PIYUSH GOYAL is there to celebrate the 25th year of strategic partnership between India and Germany. And in his agenda, he's also expected to meet multiple strategic stakeholders. And this includes the Economic Affairs and Energy Minister for Germany, Catherine Reich, as well as Dr. Levin Holle, the Economic and Federal Financial Policy Advisor at the Federal Chancellery, as well as Germany's G7 and G20 Sherpa. GOYAL's schedule also includes a series of CEO-level meetings with major German corporations such as Schaeffler Group, Renk Vehicle Mobility Solutions, Mercedes-Benz Group AG. He will also chair a roundtable with leaders of German Mittelstand companies, that's the mid and small-sized companies, as well as meet representatives from the Federation of German Industries, as well as the Asia-Pacific Association of German Businesses. And we will slip into a very short break, but coming up on the other side, why is the Infosys founding family as well as their family members staying out of the Infosys share buyback? Well, investors are responding quite positively to that development as the shares are up about 3%. We'll have Kranti Bhatini joining us on the other side of the break to explain to us what's really going on here. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
In association with Can't Do Without Servo 40 Extra from Indian Oil.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every scene, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
This is my temple.
The ultimate biking experience is incomplete without Servo 40 Extra from Indian Oil.
Breaking the model.
Can't do without it.
The GOAT or Macross satire is back. Cyrus Roja. From politics to pop culture, from your WhatsApp forwards to breaking news, nothing and no one is safe.
Relax, guys, relax. I only roast the truth, and the truth is always hilarious. Too much pressure.
Get ready for news caustic, bold, sharp, unfiltered, 100% Cyrus.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. Let's bring you all the updates from the Loud Street as markets opened just a few minutes ago to yet another green start, and the charts look fairly impressive with the Nifty 50 now above that at least that mental 26,000 level, and this is where perhaps the bulls could start racing back in. Meanwhile, Sensex also nearing that 85,000 levels. In fact, just a few points, about 60 odd points behind the 85,000 levels. So it seems today is likely to be that big day where Sensex and Nifty are going to break through into 26,000 and 85,000 levels and hopefully sustain there. So what exactly is driving up the market rally this morning? Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map and try and make sense of some of the stocks. In fact, most of the stocks which happen to be in the green territory this morning. Of course, the news coming in despite the sanctions on Russian oil. India's oil majors are all in the green this morning. The stocks of Reliance Industries, the largest in the oil bracket when it comes to the Nifty 50 companies, is up almost 0.85% or so. Meanwhile, ONGC is up about 1%. Now, this comes in the wake of global crude prices already up about 3% or so after announcement of sanctions on Russian oil. So that's the story coming from the oil pack. Meanwhile, the IT story is looking reasonably healthy this morning. Infosys shares are up more than 3%, and this is due to the fact that there's a better acceptance ratio, it seems, with the family, the Infosys founding members and their families reportedly staying out of the share buyback option. We'll explain that story with Kranti Bhatini subsequently on the show, but it seems that that story has augured really well for all IT stocks. So Infosys is up about 3%. HCL Tech is up about 2.5%. Meanwhile, Wipro and TCS also up more than 1% or so. So the IT pack pretty much holding ground, and all of this coming specifically on account of that Infosys share buyback story is what it seems. So now let's quickly delve deeper into that story, and we will of course bring you an expert view as well. So Infosys promoters, including N.R. Narayana Murthy as well as Chairman Nandan Nilekani, will not offer their shares in the buyback process announced in September. Now, the IT major stated this in a regulatory filing on Wednesday. India's second largest IT services company announced its plan to buy back 18,000 crore rupees worth of shares, its largest in a decade, at a time when stocks of those firms have been under pressure due to a weak macroeconomic environment as well as rising uncertainties from tariffs. Now, the promoters and promoter group, which also include their family members, hold as much as 13.05% of 542 million outstanding shares of the company as of the date of the announcement and the end of the second quarter of 30th September. Now, N.R. Narayana Murthy holds as much as 0.36% and Nandan Nilekani as much as 0.98% of shares respectively, while Sudha Gopalakrishnan, wife of co-founder Chris Gopalakrishnan, is the single largest promoter shareholder with 2.3% of Infosys stock. Now, the Bengaluru-based company will buy back 100 million shares at an average price of 1,800 rupees per share. Now, that represents 2.41% of the total number of equity shares in the existing total paid-up equity share capital of the company, the country's second largest IT services provider. And Kranti Bhatini joins us this morning with his view not just on the markets but also this interesting development at Infosys. Kranti, good morning. Pleasure having you back here with us on News9. As we speak, Infosys stocks are up about 3.1%. Explain to us, what is this acceptance ratio and what are investors picking up of the fact that the promoters and the promoter families are staying out of the buyback?
One thing, Karthik, good morning to you. Yeah. The promoters opting to stay away from the buyback, not participating in the buyback, it reinforces their confidence or the company's prospects in the near term. Definitely, it's sending a indirect positive signal to the investors for the promoter group, which is a minority group, despite of the promoter group, okay, what they control in terms of their complete shareholding pattern of Infosys Technologies is concerned. They comes in terms of the percentage, they are a minority group, but definitely in terms of the value, they hold substantial control in terms of the company prospects are concerned. So definitely it gives a kind of a positive signal for the investors, and the acceptance ratio is it is on a pro rata basis with respect to how many shareholders are going to opt for participating in the buyback. Okay. But the direct the theme of this entire episode and the reason for this positive uptick in Infosys shares today is that promoters are not participating in the buyback. Okay, they want to hold and reinforcing the confidence on the prospects of the company.
All right. And it seems that the buyback price of about 1,800 rupees versus today, despite a 3% hike, the price of Infosys around 1,560 odd levels. So what do you make of this premium when it comes to buyback? Is that a just sort of premium to go with?
Yeah, and also some investors, because 1,800 rupees is there for buyback, and some investors try to take that 300 rupees buyback price. They can buy in the open market and can tender in the buyback offer. That kind of activity also happens in these kind of companies. Okay. So that, and also the news has came that promoters are reinforcing their faith and trust staying and keeping their shareholding, not participating in the buyback. That sends some kind of a positive signal. And also we can see at this point of time the yesterday news that has hovered in the market, which has made the market to stay above 26,000 level, which is a positivity that India can have a trade deal soon
with the US
with a favored percentage of tariff. So that is also helping the market to stay, and Infosys has taken the lead for this.
Right, and the repercussions seem to be pretty squarely distributed across the entire IT pack. So it's not just Infosys, you also have HCL Tech, which is up more than 2.5% in early trade. You've got Wipro and TCS comfortably above 1%, and Tech Mahindra inching closer to the 2% higher mark in trade this morning. So how much of this do you feel has to do with the stand taken by the Infosys family and the founding family, as well as the family members of the founding families, and how much of it has to do with the fact that perhaps India-U.S., India-EU FTA, is pretty much in works towards completion now?
Yeah, Karthik, this we can perceive as the trade deal that's going to happen between India and U.S. Okay, that's sending a positive vibes for IT companies, because IT companies have been impacted because of the trade negotiations and India and the US relationship, how it have taken a beating in the recent past. Okay, that has been weighing on IT companies by and large at a higher extent. Now, since the positive news and the feelers are coming at this point of time, so that's giving some kind of a positive cushion for the IT companies. Right now, we need to see the final draft, and we need to wait for the official statement from the administrations and policy makers, okay, with respect to the trade deal. That's essential, because the narrative keeps changes overnight. That's extremely crucial for the investors.
Absolutely, and I think now the question really is, with reportedly Prime Minister Narendra Modi skipping the ASEAN summit, one can pretty much assure that there is no announcement of the trade deal coming this month at least, and then too close to Bihar elections, if there are any concessions that India is making on dairy and agri, it's unlikely that the government will make those announcements, at least until the last vote has been cast in Bihar. But shifting focus for now to another sector, Kranti, and it'll be great to have your input on that as well, is the energy sector. Now, the fact that there are sanctions now, official sanctions that US has pushed on Russian oil makers, oil refiners, and oil prices globally have inched up about 3% or so. What do you make of the energy stocks? Because I'm looking at Reliance, which is up about 1%, ONGC is up about 1%. So how do you think the energy story pans out from here?
It's very tricky, Karthik. The announcement that has came from US administration, okay, we are restraining India to buy more oil from Russia. But we have not witnessed any categorically statement from Indian administration denying that we are stopping buying oil. But there might be a situation, the quantum of oil bought by Indian oil marketing companies can be slightly reduced, but we don't have a quantum or figures, exact figures of how much the Indian OMCs have reduced the oil buying from Russia. But for India, it have the legitimate right to source the oil wherever it gets a good deal because of the growth and also the prospects of growing needs of India is concerned, the energy needs of India is concerned. That is extremely crucial.
Right.
So India have the legitimate right to buy oil, and we are not a small country. We are one of the largest consumer of energy and oil across the globe. So at this point of time, we have the legitimate right. That's what my personal feeling is.
All right.
But we need to have a bilateral statements.
Absolutely.
The statements have been coming from one side only.
One-sided.
So,
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, Kranti, one sort of fallout one could assume, in fact, the fear always is that as oil prices go up, there is also possibility of importing inflation. Now, of course, oil prices are hovering in the $60 a barrel region right now. But if these sanctions and when they take effect and in case oil prices were to get disrupted towards the upward territory, then there is a possibility of India importing inflation. But despite that fear, I'm seeing that the consumer non-durables, the FMCG space is holding up pretty well this morning. You've got HUL up about 1.5%. You've also got ITC, Tata Consumer, these stocks doing very well. Now, is this inflation something that one need not worry about until oil, let's say, touches a $70 a barrel mark?
Absolutely, Karthik. Okay, oil is in a consolidation phase, and whenever in the recent past, whenever the geopolitical escalation has arisen, we are pretty much confident the oil are going to be in a consolidation zone. And also we need to take into cognizance when oil prices rises, that's just like a double-edged sword for the U.S. administration also.
You're okay on segment 3 duration?
Yeah. It is the oil prices are double-edged sword for U.S. administration also, U.S. economy also. They want a rate cut, and the inflation is the key concern for the Federal Reserve. And at the same point of time, U.S. is one of the key exporter of oil at this point of time, gas at this point of time. By and large, what we can sense at this point of time is oil is going to be in a consolidation phase, prolonged. We need to wait and watch. There can be here and there some kind of spurts because of these geopolitical statements do escalate somewhere here and there. So we can expect some plus or minus 3 to 5% spikes or reduction in oil prices. Coming to the FMCG pack is concerned, the GST booster has been the kickstarter for FMCG companies, and these stocks have been in a long consolidation phase in the recent past, and we can see some kind of a feelers with respect to boost up of consumption in the medium to short term. That is the reason for this positivity in FMCG companies and stocks are concerned.
All right, and final question to you. I don't know if you can venture a guess or a guesstimate, Kranti. Now that we've seen this sort of momentum coming back into the Indian markets and the spate of bad news seemingly over and things only likely to get better, looking at the momentum last 5 or 6 trading sessions and the levels that Sensex and Nifty have breached today, the 85,000 mark and the 26,000 mark, where do you think markets are headed? Are they headed in the positive territory, or are there more shocks that one should sort of be ready for?
Karthik, very interesting question, but last few days what we witnessed is the FIs have reduced their selling, okay, which has given a positive momentum and sustainability to come back to the range of 26,000. Despite of FIs selling earlier, we could be able to hold on to 25,000 level. From here onwards, if we can get a trade deal which is in favor of India, definitely the market can sustain the range of 26,000 level. But right now, the support zone has moved from earlier 24,500 to the markets 25,000 level. So this 1,000 points rally in the market and sustaining the current range of 25,000 in the medium to short term is extremely crucial for the markets to take one more leg up rally further. We are already just at the range of kissing distance to the new highs. So we are having an earnings season right now. If we can get some kind of a strong support from the earnings season, definitely market can be headed to a new high. Two things one need to take into cognizance, the result season and the trade deal. If we can get a favorable news, definitely market can head to the new high. Or else the market can be in a range, but the change of range is right now changed to the range of 25,000 level.
All right. Well, Kranti Bhatini, let's hope that both these spring up positive surprises, the earnings season as well as the trade deal with the US, at least for the sake of retail investors watching the show. But as always, pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time, Kranti Bhatini. And before we slip into another break, let's look at some of the other global stories that we're tracking for you this morning. NATO chief Mark Rutte back US President Donald Trump as the ultimate peacemaker, says he has total confidence in Trump's ability to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. But Russia flexes its nuclear muscle, conducts massive weapons drill just a day after Washington delays the Trump-Putin summit. Crude prices jump over 3% after Trump vows heavy sanctions on two Russian oil companies, while reports of new US export curbs on China spook global markets. US President Donald Trump says automaker Ford and General Motors bosses personally thanked him for truck tariffs, crediting his tariff policy for their surging stocks. Tesla posts record third-quarter revenue at $28 billion, beating expectations, though profit per share falls short. Musk's limited robotaxi rollout in Texas signals Tesla's next big bet, autonomous tech powered by AI. Europe signs a sweeping cooperation pact with Egypt, pledging $5 billion in aid, new AI partnership and funds to tackle migration and human trafficking. Britain's inflation rate stays flat in September, fueling hopes for an interest rate cut soon. A potential lift for Finance Minister Rachel Reeves ahead of her November budget. Streaming giant Netflix misses profit estimates after a surprise tax bill in Brazil, but ends the quarter upbeat. With 300 million users, the streamer eyes growth through ads and gaming, though returns remain modest. And finally, Amazon accelerates automation across its warehouses using AI and robotics, boosting efficiency, but raising alarms over the future of human jobs. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
My car got started. It loses its mood. Doesn't your car ever lose its mood?
No, my car never breaks down. I feed it with Vidol. That's why.
Vidol?
If the engine is okay, the mode will be okay. Mom. Bye.
Ma'am, please wait. This is for you.
Huh? Saurav Dada! Hi!
Saurav Ganguly and hordes of car owners have tested and trusted Vidol engine oil. It actually keeps the engine clean from deep within.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every scene, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News9's pick of the week. Don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching News9. Let's bring you all the stories that we're tracking for you from around the world. As diplomatic uncertainty lingers over the next Trump-Putin summit, NATO's new Secretary General Mark Rutte has voiced total confidence in US President Donald Trump's ability to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. Now, Rutte's comments come after Trump and Putin held a rare phone call last week and agreed in principle to meet in Hungary, a plan that now appears uncertain. Listen in to the NATO chief.
I have total confidence in President Trump, and he is the only one who can get this done. He is the leader of the most powerful nation on earth. You are all citizens of the most powerful nation on earth, the most powerful economy, the most powerful military, and you have a president with a lot of experience because of his first term in office and who has a clear vision on bringing this war to a durable and lasting end. He wants that. He wants to end the bloodshed. He wants to end the killing. And he knows how important it is. And this is a big deal for him, for all of us. So his leadership here is crucial.
Meanwhile, Russia announced that it carried out a large-scale nuclear weapons training exercise on Wednesday, just a day after the U.S. delayed plans for a Trump-Putin summit on the Ukraine war. The Kremlin said that the drills tested the readiness of military command and control systems and the operational skills of the staff, adding that all objectives were met. Now, these drills also come just a week over the NATO held its own nuclear deterrence exercise called Steadfast Noon. Take a look.
The head of the NATO alliance on Wednesday said he had, quote, total confidence that U.S. President Donald Trump could deliver peace for Ukraine.
He's the only one who can get this done.
Secretary General Mark Rutte made the comments on a visit to Washington, where he echoed Trump's support for an immediate ceasefire.
I totally agree with him. Stop where you are. That's the main message.
But Moscow signaled something different. The Kremlin published video of what it said were drills involving nuclear weapons, including practice launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Russian President Vladimir Putin has issued reminders of Russia's nuclear might as a warning to Kiev and its Western allies at key moments in the war. The exercises come a day after the U.S. said it had paused plans for a meeting between Putin and Trump focused on Ukraine. That was the latest twist in months of stalled diplomacy. Putin and Trump spoke last week and unexpectedly announced they would hold a summit in Hungary that the Kremlin said could take place within a couple of weeks. But then the U.S. leader said he supported an immediate ceasefire along the current battle lines. Moscow insists Kiev must cede more territory before talks can begin. That may have left little room for progress.
I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens.
Ukraine's leader was not waiting around for negotiations to begin. President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Sweden, maker of the Gripen's warplane. Stockholm has said it signed a letter of intent to export the fighter jets to Ukraine, as European governments boost Kiev's defenses in a war that has ground on for more than 3.5 years since Russia's full-scale invasion and shows no sign of ending soon.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump stated on Wednesday that top executive at General Motors and Ford personally thanked him for imposing tariffs on U.S. truck imports, saying the move has boosted their stock prices. Now, this comes as both automakers recently reported strong quarterly earnings, beating market expectations with improved revenue and profit margins, driven by higher vehicle prices and increased demand for trucks as well as SUVs. In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, and I quote, "Without these tariffs, it would have been a long, hard slog for America's car and truck makers," unquote. He defended the tariffs as vital for national security and credited them with strengthening U.S. manufacturing. The European Union and Egypt have signed a major set of cooperation agreements aimed at boosting trade, investments as well as security ties. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen announced a $5 billion in assistance and said Europe's AI factories will now be open to Egyptian startups. She added that another 200 million euros will go towards managing migration and countering human trafficking.
We are strengthening Egypt's economic stability. We are providing Egypt with €5 billion in macro-financial assistance. It was signed today. And we continue our support to social and economic reforms. The third pillar is we are boosting together investment and trade. The European Union is Egypt's largest trading partner, accounting for a quarter of your trade. Our investment conference last year secured commitments worth €49 billion. That is impressive. We're opening Europe's AI factories to Egyptian startups so they can train their model and test their model on European supercomputers and use the whole computational power of the European Union.
And with that, we come to an end of this show. But before we go, a look at OpenAI's new Atlas, the browser taking on Google Chrome, as well as the food of AI-driven investments across tech. Now, this is a weekly wrap of the biggest stories from the AI revolution this week.
From OpenAI's challenge to Google to companies riding an investment boom, this is AI Weekly. OpenAI unveiled its long-awaited web browser ChatGPT Atlas. The AI-powered tool is built around the firm's popular chatbot as it tries to capitalize on 800 million weekly active ChatGPT users. It could also present a direct challenge to Google Chrome's dominance. That's if Atlas accelerates a shift towards AI-driven search as users turn to conversational tools instead of traditional keyword-based results. TSMC rode the AI boom to smash past projections and score a record-breaking third quarter profit. The Taiwanese chip giant reported a net profit of almost $15 billion, up just under 40%, marking its sixth straight quarter of double-digit growth. TSMC said AI demand is still growing and raised its full-year revenue forecast. Engineering company ABB was another firm to score big out of AI demand. The Swiss company saw a surge in orders for new data centers being built in the US to process AI. Data center related orders rose by a double-digit percentage rate in the third quarter. The firm's CEO said they're very confident about future demand from data centers and rejected concerns the industry could be in what was called an unsustainable bubble. And a British spy leader warned AI systems acting without human control could pose a security threat one day. That was the message from the head of Britain's MI5 spy agency, Ken McCallum, although he said he wasn't predicting doom scenarios as depicted in sci-fi movies like The Terminator. He warned AI could be used to elevate discord by hostile actors. McCallum also said AI was used by the British security services to make their work more effective.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every scene, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Big Daddy of elections has arrived. Or will Bihar, Gen Z usher in change? Have they emerged as a substantial vote base? We have been able to indigenously develop a system which a lot of countries aspire. We have also drawn that red line, and that's the best part. Donald Trump has been keeping everybody guessing. There are things you can negotiate and there are things you cannot negotiate. The Americans never expected such a tough line from the Indians. You confront a bully up front, you know.
Being a chef, it's my priority to deliver taste in a plate with good presentation, unique innovation. You need to explore, you need to experiment.
You observe the people, make them happy, make them feel happy, and in the end you are smiling. That's the most important thing.
That goat is long dead, but you are still alive. Game Cho. This is God's office calling. You're not a VIP, so God won't speak directly, but here's the deal. You have been granted a second chance with a brand new news show.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. You said two lives, two more lives. So I'll first be a newsman who wins awards, and second I'll be
Cockroach.
better make this show last. No hurry to, be a cockroach. Let's stay here for a little while. Don't want to be a cockroach. Apparently, they have lots of issues, like being stamped upon. This is the same thing as a newsman. I mean, they're not that different.
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
Hello and welcome. You're watching News 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Let's start the show with headlines.
Associate sponsor Bank of Baroda के संग त्योहार की उमंग.
Prime Minister Modi too unlikely to travel to Malaysia for the ASEAN Summit. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will represent India at the meeting in Kuala Lumpur on 26th to 28th of October. Although Prime Minister Modi will participate in the ASEAN-India segment virtually. SIT arrests former Sabrimala Administrative Officer Murari Babu in the gold theft case. Second arrest in the ongoing gold scam probe. Suspected IED blast damages railway track in Kokrajhar in Assam, disrupting train services. Four most wanted Bihar gangsters shot dead in Delhi's Rohini during a joint encounter by Delhi Police Crime Branch and the Bihar Police. Fire breaks out in Delhi's Rani Garden slums. 8 fire tenders rush to the spot. Donald Trump announces sanctions on 2 Russian companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, in a bid to pressure Moscow to end the Ukraine war. Russia conducts major nuclear drills, launching ICBMs and cruise missiles just hours after Putin-Trump summit in Budapest is postponed. Deadly California freeway crash kills 3 people. Police blames 21-year-old truck driver Jashanpreet Singh.
Associate sponsor Bank of Baroda के संग त्योहार की उमंग.
Our top story at this hour, Prime Minister Modi will not be travelling to Malaysia for the ASEAN Summit beginning Sunday due to scheduling issues. According to sources, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will represent India at the meetings in Kuala Lumpur from 26th to 28th of October. However, Prime Minister will participate in the ASEAN India segment virtually. Prime Minister Modi has led India's delegation to the ASEAN and the East Asia summits in recent years, highlighting New Delhi's growing engagement with Southeast Asian nation. Now, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has confirmed Modi's virtual participation. In a statement, Ibrahim mentioned that he had spoken with associate of the Indian Prime Minister and appreciated India's continued commitment to strengthening bilateral relations in the region. He added that Malaysia values its partnership with India in the area of trade, technology, education and regional security, and extended Deepavali greetings to Prime Minister Modi and the people of India. Moving to poll-bound Bihar now, while the speculations are rising over Tejashwi Yadav being the new chief minister face of the Mahagathbandhan in Bihar, the Grand Alliance is likely to hold a press conference later today. Mahagathbandhan faces internal disputes over seat sharing. The India bloc, which includes Rashtriya Janata Dal and the Congress, has failed to reach a consensus ahead of the crucial Bihar Assembly elections beginning November. Sources suggest that significant disagreement has surfaced within the partners of India Alliance over the announcement of Tejashwi Yadav as the chief ministerial candidate. A large section of the Congress leadership is reportedly not in favour of declaring Tejashwi Yadav's name at this stage. Earlier, Congress sent former Rajasthan Chief Minister and senior leader Ashok Gehlot to Patna to resolve the Grand Alliance's issue in Bihar. Ashok Gehlot first met Tejashwi Yadav in the official residence. However, reports suggest that the meeting was not fruitful. Ashok Gehlot then went on to meet RJD President Lalu Prasad Yadav. The meeting lasted for only 15 minutes. After the meeting, Ashok Gehlot did admit that there is in fact friendly fight in some seats. However, that's not a big deal, he said, while adding things would be clear by Thursday. Gehlot also said that all constituents of the India bloc will unitedly contest against NDA candidates.
एनडीए के मुकाबला करेंगे, सब मिलकर कैंपेन शुरू करेंगे। अच्छी बात हुई सारी बातें कल क्लियर हो जाएगी आपके सामने। और 243 सीटें यहाँ पर हैं। 243 सीटों में 5-7 सीटों में तो थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन हो जाता है, केवल फ्रेंडली फाइट भी होती है, उसमें कोई ज्यादा इसको आपको बहुत सीरियस लेना नहीं चाहिए। ऐसा माहौल बना दिया पूरे प्रदेश में, महागठबंधन में झगड़े हो गए हैं, कोई झगड़ा नहीं है, सब मिलके ही कैंपेन करेंगे और सब मिलके ही काम करेंगे और जीत के आएंगे, ये माहौल बना।
Now, JDU leader Rajiv Ranjan Prasad has expressed doubts about the alliance's prospects. Showing confidence, he stated that whether RJD leader Tejashwi Yadav becomes the chief minister candidate or not, the Mahagathbandhan is likely to lose in the upcoming elections.
देखिए, डैमेज कंट्रोल की कोशिश अगर वो करना भी चाहे तो महागठबंधन की सेहत सुधरने नहीं जा रही है। तेजस्वी यादव को लेकर कांग्रेस और साथी दलों के अंदर अविश्वास का संकट बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गया है और अगर उनकी स्वीकार्यता ऐसी होती तो जिस तरीके से अलग अलग पार्टियों की सूचियां और 1 दर्जन सीटों पर घमासान आपस में ये स्थितियां उत्पन्न नहीं होती। अब एक कवायद है, वो चाहेंगे मुकाबले में बहुत पीछे चले गए हैं तो एक और नए शिगुफे के साथ, इसलिए कि ये कोशिश लगातार उनकी ओर से होती है, कुछ ना कुछ धमाका वो अपनी ओर से करते रहे। लेकिन बिहार की जमीनी सच्चाई ये है कि बिहार के मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार जी और देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में एनडीए का विजय रथ बहुत आगे बढ़ गया है और मुकाबले में बिखरा हुआ महागठबंधन कहीं नहीं है। इसीलिए कोई भी प्रयास उनकी ओर से हो, चेहरा वो बने न बने, महागठबंधन की बड़ी हार होगी।
All right, so Mahagathbandhan press conference later today is going to clear the air on who will be the chief ministerial candidate of the Gathbandhan. However, speculations are rising over Tejashwi Yadav's candidature. The Grand Alliance will be holding a press conference later today to clear the air and perhaps set the stage now for a furious battle in Bihar starting 6th of November. Results of which will be out by 14th of November. Now, Mahagathbandhan is facing internal dispute over seat sharing. In fact, India Bloc, which includes Rashtriya Janata Dal and the Congress Party, have not reached a consensus ahead of the crucial assembly elections. In fact, there is significant disagreement on who should be the chief ministerial candidate. Partners of India Alliance are squabbling at the moment whether they should be declaring a candidate today or not. A large section of the Congress leadership is not happy. They are not in favor of declaring Tejashwi Yadav as the chief minister face. In fact, earlier today, Congress sent former chief minister of Rajasthan, Ashok Gehlot, to Patna to resolve the issues that exist within the Grand Alliance. However, there wasn't much luck for Ashok Gehlot as he first met Tejashwi Yadav at his official residence, but reports suggest